Hi guys, how you doing? This is Ben, the Real Estate Pro, coming at you, hopefully going to kick you some knowledge. So today I am continuing my series on FISBOs for those of you that do not wish to hire an agent but want to sell your house yourselves, which could be a huge savings to you if you so desire and if you will do the work. Now, today we're going to talk a little bit about what I think is very important and really should be one of your first steps before you even start marketing your property is finding a title and escrow company. Let's get into it. Now, first, before I get into what they actually do, I do want to mention that depending on the region or state that you're in, they may not be known as title and escrow companies. In Arizona and California, where I do business, that's typically what they're called, title and escrow companies. But where you live, they may be called something else. Many places are called closing agents. Other places you have attorneys or closing attorneys that actually provide these services. And most of them will have a title company that they work with or they're actually joined with in order to provide you those services. Now, generally they provide title insurance and they perform what are called escrow services, and I'll explain those here in just a moment. Now, what is title insurance? Well, to put it simply, title insurance is a way to protect yourself from financial loss and related legal expenses in the event that there is a defect in title to your property that is covered by the policy. Title insurance differs from other types of insurance in that it focuses on risk prevention rather than risk assumption. With title insurance, title examiners review the history of your property and seek to eliminate title issues before the purchase occurs. Title insurance also differs in that it comes with no monthly payment. It's just a one-time premium paid at closing. So to kind of explain that is, let's say that you're purchasing a property, you close on that property, and then someone knocks on your door one day and said, "Hey, where's Joe Seller at? He owed me $50,000 on this property. Where's my money?" So when circumstances like that, and that's kind of a simple circumstance, but if there are either defects in titles or other things that other legal expenses that are related to that, that were previous to you owning the property, title insurance will cover those things. And you're going to want to talk to a title officer to be more specific about what's covered and what's not, depending on the state that you're in. So what are escrow services? Escrow is a term that describes a neutral third party handling of funds, documents, and tasks specific to the closing or settlement as it is also known, as outlined on the real estate purchase agreement or sales contract. The purpose of escrow is to facilitate the transaction by managing the disbursement of funds and documents. So it just basically, an escrow officer is just going to make sure that the wishes of the buyer and seller and what they agreed to, those wishes are fulfilled according to whatever documentation that they have, usually in this case, a real estate purchase agreement. Now, there are a lot of different types of title and escrow companies out there. Depending on what region you are, they may be known by different names, but some of the ones that I've done business with and they're kind of in my local area are Pioneer Title Agency, First American Title, Stewart Title, Fidelity National Title, Old Republic Title. I've probably done business with all of these companies in the past and many others. There are also small title and escrow companies that aren't listed here. So you may just want to do a Google search in your area, or you probably just drive around and probably see signs that you never noticed before that are advertising for these services. Now remember, selling a house takes work. I said that in my first video. You should probably check that out after you watch this video just to get an idea of what it's going to take to sell your house and save thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars on the sale of your home. You're going to want to call several title and escrow companies, not just one, two, three at a minimum. And you're going to want to call and speak with somebody called an escrow officer or a closing agent. Now, most companies have several escrow officers or closing agents. So even though you may be talking to one company, you may want to ask to talk to another escrow officer at the same company because they're not all made equal. Trust me. You have some that are much more knowledgeable than others. Now, a few key questions that I would ask or that I do ask when I'm in a FISBO situation, when I'm trying to sell a house myself, is when I call an escrow officer, the first thing that I ask them is, are you familiar with FISBOs? You might be surprised with how many escrow officers that haven't done that many or aren't really that familiar with situations where you have a homeowner that's trying to sell a house themselves. What services can they offer you? Now, I've been in the business a long time, so I kind of know what to expect, what services they can offer me, but you may not. So don't be afraid to ask and say, hey, look, I'm trying to sell my home myself. I am not hiring an agent. How can you help me reach my goals? And let them sell themselves to you as to why you should use them to help you. Okay? What are the fees they charge for their services? Don't be afraid to ask to get an estimate. Hey, look, my house, I'm planning on selling it for, let's say 500,000. Doesn't have to be an exact number. You're just trying to get an estimate. Can you tell me what fees I might be charged if I use your company on my home? And generally, the fees will be dictated by the sales price of the property. So that's why it's important for you to kind of have a general idea. I mean, you can just go to Zillow and look there and look at their value and use that number if you want. And just say, hey, if I sell my house for this much, how much will it cost me? And then you can compare those costs to several different companies because you'll notice there's going to be some differences. Now, is it going to be a great difference? Not necessarily, but hey, if you're really trying to save money and maybe you don't have a lot of equity in your house, and that might be the reason why you're trying to sell the house yourself, that could be a big difference. Now, this is very important. Not all escrow officers or closing agents are created equal. Do they seem eager to help you? Sometimes you'll get on the phone with somebody and they're kind of matter of fact and just trying to get you off the phone. Maybe not someone you want to work with. Contact and interview several people. And like I said before, don't be afraid to ask for another escrow officer with the same company. Like I said, many of these companies have several people. You're trying to find the right person, not necessarily the right company. Certainly you want to, look into and see what fees, what services they can provide you, what type of backup or what type of people do they have working behind them? What type of team do they have behind them? You certainly want to know about those things, but you're really looking for someone that's knowledgeable and that's willing to help you. And if they're willing to have a conversation, if they're willing to answer your questions, that's typically the person that you're going to want to work with. Outside of that, I mean, as a real estate agent and as a mortgage loan officer, I've had to work with escrow officers that frankly kind of sucked. So, like I said, you want to kind of feel them out, see what they're like. Are you getting along with them on a personal level? Do they like to joke around? Do they like to have a conversation? Not too much of a conversation, but if they like to get to the point and they can go ahead and if you feel like they can go ahead and help you in your transaction, certainly consider them as your escrow officer. And guys, don't get discouraged. Remember, like I said before in my previous video, you got to do the work, you got to spend the time. You're looking for an escrow agent that's going to help you. And you might need to speak with several, like I said before you finally get somebody that you kind of click with, understands what it is that you want to do. And once you do that, they're like gold. I'll give you kind of an example of many years ago when I first started in the industry. I was actually an investor, I was a wholesaler. And I found an escrow officer that really, really helped me out because I was fairly new to that aspect of the business as far as wholesaling. That's a whole other video. But I was buying a property with the intentions of reselling it. And what I learned through this one particular escrow officer is uh, they helped me I shouldn't say put the agreement together, but they helped me with the process. I didn't actually need like a purchase agreement like now in most states, at least the states that I've done business in, a real estate contract or a real estate agreement, I should say, has to be in writing. Whatever agreement the buyer and seller has must be in writing for it to be valid and legal. But it doesn't necessarily have to be these big old long real estate contracts that a lot of real estate agents want you to use. because honestly, a lot of the verbiage and things that are in there are really more to, I mean, they are in there to protect their principals or their buyer and the seller, but there's a lot of verbiage in there that's to protect themselves. You don't really need all that stuff. It just needs to be a meeting of the minds, an agreement on what the price is or what the terms are. And a lot of times, or in this particular instance, all we did was went down to escrow. I filled out some paperwork, buyer, seller, the property, how much, and that was pretty much it. And we were able to close, and I was able to make a pretty good profit on that particular deal. But it was because I had a really good escrow officer that was guiding me through that process. And this is me at this time. This was me after being in mortgages for several years. So there's always something, no matter how much experience that you really have in real estate. Like I said, I had experience in mortgages. I didn't understand exactly what an escrow officer does, and all the things they could do for me depending on the needs that I had. Okay, so hopefully this helps you guys. Just be persistent. Talk to several people, talk to several escrow companies, and find that person that's going to help you. One thing I do want to add is typically in most real estate transactions, when a buyer makes an offer to you to purchase, they normally will go ahead and include what title and escrow company they would like to use. And sometimes you'll see, seller's choice. I know I've used that in contracts before. But there, you may find an occasion where a buyer wants to use their title and escrow company. And in this particular case, I would recommend that you set up your sale with a title and escrow company that you like to use. That would just be my recommendation. If you do get an offer from a buyer or a buyer's agent that says, hey, they want to use a particular title and escrow company, you can always counter back and say, hey, look, I've already set this up at this title and escrow company. I really would prefer to use that one. And I doubt that you'll get a lot of pushback. And even if you do decide to use the buyer wishes to utilize, it's still a good idea to talk to a title and escrow company just to get information, find out what to expect, find out how the process goes, even if you're not using that particular company. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that before I moved on to the next topic. Guys, my next video is going to be about preparing your house for sale. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't think about, a lot of things that are important when you want to get your house ready to sell to a buyer. This has been the Real Estate Pro. We'll talk to you next time.